Well, everybody knows the importance of receiving presentation feedback. You only want to hear the positives, right? Fine. You'll take the negatives, but only if it's from someone you know. Bill Kenney disagrees. His company is Test My Pitch, and they provide you, the entrepreneur, with an opportunity to get feedback on your presentation. Bill, welcome to the Language of Business.
Thank you, Craig. It's great to be here.
How can an entrepreneur get feedback from people that don't even know their backstory, let alone the history of their idea?
What we find, actually, the more important variables are not necessarily who the person is, but who they're going to communicate with and what the purpose of the communication is. So that kind of context really helps the reviewer steer the individual in a much more effective way.
How do you preserve confidentiality?
In our public platform, we don't, but we do sell a private version of our platform that allows organizations to manage that intellectual property in a way that doesn't put it in the public domain.
In the public version of your software, is the feedback always anonymous?
Individuals are identified when they give it, and we feel that's important. You tend to lose credibility if you don't identify who's giving the feedback.
But if you don't even know who's giving you the feedback, or if you do know them, how can you vouch for that person's credibility?
The key is really, it almost doesn't matter. Our platform allows pitching just to experts. It allows pitching to the crowd or crowdsourced feedback. I think you need to have feedback from a lot of different people. It could be your style that they react to. It could be the words you use not being clear. The challenge is if you're just getting feedback from people with a certain perspective, you may not be communicating away. A lot of people tend to put in jargon that is, that may be really good with people in your industry that you'd want to get feedback from. But as soon as you go outside of that industry, people have no idea what you're talking about. So we really find it is important to have that industry type feedback, but also getting more well-rounded feedback is important as well.
Do entrepreneurs ever take offense?
We've certainly seen in live feedback events where people do take offense. They get defensive and so on. But I think that's really a learning opportunity in that you don't have to take the advice, but you certainly have to encourage it, because the minute you start being defensive, you get a lot less feedback. And so it's really about being open to those suggestions. Part of what we do is actually when you get feedback, you have the opportunity to identify how effective that feedback was for you. So every person that gets feedback now is scored, and we're able to elevate people to sort of a higher level, an expert level, if they get enough good scores. And so the idea that it's better curated feedback is really where we're going. And so we're actually working towards a place where we can match people much better with their goals, so industries and so on.
The expert level being the person presenting or the people giving the feedback?
I was talking specifically about the person giving the feedback. So the idea that if you've given feedback to 10 or 20 people, and a vast majority of the time people have said that that's been helpful feedback, you are ranked higher as a reviewer than someone who has either done less or gotten less of those positive reviews.
Bill, with all of the elements of business communication available to you, why have you focused on giving presentation feedback?
Ultimately, for us, it's where we see making the largest impact. When a company is looking to commercialize a product, really getting that immediate feedback to let them know if the idea is good is really important. And I think that often we see the barrier to that feedback is really that clear articulation of what they're looking to do. And so we really want to help people get by that hump and be able to commercialize much quicker.
Are there other products in your pipeline besides products that give you presentation feedback?
Not necessarily other products related to presentation feedback, but we did just a week ago launch a pitch event judging and feedback system. So there are pitch events going on pretty much every day, and the idea that when an entrepreneur exits that event, they'll have immediate feedback that's actionable so that they continue to evolve their ideas much quicker is really our goal.
You mentioned on LinkedIn that you are an ROI expert. What is the ROI of Test My Pitch, and how does it make money?
We sell private versions, white label versions of our site to universities, business accelerators, and entrepreneurship ecosystems.
And what's a white label version?
A white label version would really just be a private version that would allow a university accelerator and so on to have a private community online so that their audience could work directly, their entrepreneurs could work directly with their mentors in complete anonymity.
And what's the revenue model then?
It's really a private annual license. So it's selling those sort of an enterprise level license to those types of organizations.
With all of the pitches that you've seen and all of the feedback that you have observed that has been given, what do you think are some good tricks of the trade for improving business communication?
Oh, by far the most important is knowing who your audience is and being, understanding that it really doesn't matter what you say, it's what the audience hears, and aligning your communication in a way that makes it most likely for them to hear your intent.
Even if it's what you don't want to hear.
The idea that you haven't, and this is always the funny thing about feedback, is not knowing what people think doesn't mean they don't think it. And so the more you understand about their impressions, the more you can tailor your message to meet their need.
Sort of that wonderful sweater that you get over the holidays that the person giving it thinks it's wonderful, but you wouldn't be caught dead wearing it out of the house, let alone to your office?
Yes, honey, you look great in that dress. Yeah, no, you want to know. It's really critically important. And if you can't, ultimately, I think that's really where you know who your friends are, when people feel comfortable in sharing what they really think with you.
If an entrepreneur receives negative feedback and it's in the public domain, is there a way for them to remove it as they are progressing with the improvement of their pitch?
Sure, they could delete the pitch from the system. Ultimately, that's really an archive of progress. And some of what we want to help not just the entrepreneur, but the organizations, the accelerators and the universities do, is to be able to measure impact. And so that showing that trajectory of an individual or a team or a business idea is really important to measuring impact, to know where the effect comes from. What mentors are causing that change is really important as well. So we hope that there's less deleting going on than more, I suppose.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Greg.
Bill Kenney, CEO and founder of Test My Pitch. Would you want to work for you? Imagine how that year-end review would go.
Coming up, if you wind up doing business in a different language, do you worry about things getting lost in translation? But first, we'll travel to Singapore as Greg Stoller talks with a personal branding expert.